I used to think Instagram was just harmless fun, a place to share photos of my workouts, post a few motivational quotes, maybe inspire a couple of people to get in shape. It wasn't serious, and for a long time, it stayed that way. But that was before that one follower. My name's Rachel, and I run a small fitness account on Instagram. I'm not a huge influencer or anything, but I've built a decent following, mostly people who love fitness, nutrition, and the whole healthy living thing. It's a hobby that's turned into a side gig over the years, and I've even picked up a few personal training clients because of it. My account has always been a positive space for me and my followers, until it wasn't. It started off like any other day. I had just finished recording a workout video at the gym. The usual deadlifts, squats, some cardio. I edited the video and posted it with a caption about staying motivated even when life gets hard. The likes and comments rolled in as usual, lots of "great job" and "thanks for the motivation." But there was one comment that caught my eye. "Nice form. You always push yourself hard. I like that." It didn't seem weird at the time. Just another follower commenting on my post. I replied with a quick "thanks" and went about my day. Little did I know that simple comment was the start of something that would turn my life upside down. A few days later, I posted another workout video. Same routine. But as I scrolled through the list of viewers on my Instagram stories, I noticed that one particular account had been watching every single story. Not once, not twice, every single one. The account had no profile picture, no posts, and no bio. At first, I thought nothing of it. Instagram is full of random accounts. But as the days went on, I realized this account wasn't just randomly watching my stories. It was always the first to view them. No matter what time I posted, whether it was morning, afternoon, or late at night, this account was always there immediately. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I mentioned it to my friend Jess one night while we were hanging out at my apartment. She thought I was overreacting, of course. "People do weird stuff online all the time, Rachel," she said. "It's probably just some troll who likes creeping on fitness influencers." She had a point. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid. But something about it stuck with me. That nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach didn't go away. A week later, I got my first DM from the account. It was late, around 11 p.m. I had just finished posting a picture of my post-workout smoothie when the notification popped up on my screen. "You're really dedicated. I like that about you. You never give up, do you?" There was nothing outwardly creepy about the message, but it made me uncomfortable. I hesitated before replying, wondering if I should just ignore it. But then I thought, what harm could a simple reply do? So I sent back a quick, polite response. "Thanks, I try my best." Big mistake. After that, the messages started coming more frequently. At first, they were just comments about my workouts. "You're getting stronger, I can tell." "I bet you could deadlift even more if you pushed yourself." "Your dedication is inspiring." But then, the messages became more personal. "I saw you wearing that black tank top again today. It looks good on you." That one stopped me cold. I hadn't posted any photos of myself wearing a black tank top recently, but I had worn one to the gym that morning. I didn't think anyone had noticed. Hell, I hadn't even taken a selfie that day. My mind raced as I tried to figure out how this person knew what I was wearing. Was it just a lucky guess? Or had they been there, watching me in person? I didn't reply to that message. Over the next few days, I became hyper-aware of my surroundings. Every time I went to the gym, I felt like someone was watching me. I started looking over my shoulder constantly, checking the mirrors, trying to see if anyone was paying too much attention. But there was never anyone suspicious. Just the usual crowd of gym goers focused on their own workouts. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the feeling of unease wouldn't go away. Then, one evening, I was walking home from the gym when I got another message. "You should take a different route home. That street is too empty at night." I froze in my tracks. I looked around, searching the dimly lit street for any sign of someone following me. The street was deserted, but that didn't make me feel any better. I quickened my pace, practically sprinting the rest of the way to my apartment. When I got home, I locked the door behind me and immediately blocked the account. I hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to a new message, this time from a different account. No profile picture, no bio, just another random username. Blocking me won't stop me from seeing you. A sickening wave of nausea engulfed me. How many accounts did this person have? How long had they been watching me? I wanted to call the police, but what could I tell them? Someone was sending me creepy messages on Instagram? It wasn't exactly a crime. But the messages were getting worse, more personal, more invasive. A few days later, I got the message that sent me over the edge. Nice run this morning. You're getting faster. I like seeing you push yourself on the trail by the park. I hadn't posted about my run that morning. I hadn't shared anything on my story. But somehow, they knew exactly where I had been, what time I had run, and how long I had been out there. They were following me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, expecting another message to pop up. But the worst part was the feeling of being watched. Like there were eyes on me at all times, even in the supposed safety of my own home. Around midnight, I was scrolling through Netflix, trying to decide on something to watch. The glow from the screen was the only light in the room. That's when my phone buzzed with a new notification. I looked down at the screen. It was a new direct message. I know what you're watching. My breath caught in my throat. There was no way anyone could know that. I hadn't posted anything about it, hadn't even mentioned it to Jess when we talked earlier. I tried to shake off the chill creeping up my spine, telling myself it was just a coincidence. Then another message popped up. This one was worse. That documentary you're playing, the one about serial killers, not a fan. A cold wave of fear rolled through me. My TV was showing exactly that, a true crime documentary I'd picked randomly out of boredom. I quickly grabbed the remote, pausing the video. I felt exposed, vulnerable. Someone was watching me, even inside my own home. I called Jess, my hands shaking as I held the phone to my ear. She picked up on the second ring, her voice groggy. "Rachel, what's wrong?" she asked, instantly sensing the fear in my voice. "I just got these messages. They know what I'm watching on TV," I whispered. "I haven't posted anything. I haven't shared this with anyone." Jess's voice sharpened. "Rachel, listen to me. Turn off your Wi-Fi and unplug everything. I'm coming over right now. Don't stay online." I scrambled to disconnect everything, my mind spinning as I yanked the Wi-Fi cord from the wall. I sat there in the sudden silence, every little noise in the apartment now feeling magnified. It was like I could feel someone's eyes on me, even though I knew I was alone. A few minutes later, Jess texted me, "I'm here. Open up." I unlocked the door with shaky hands, and she stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room as if she expected to find someone hiding in the shadows. But there was no one, just us alone in the apartment. "You need to report this," she said, her tone serious. "This isn't just someone messing with you." I nodded, barely able to think straight. She was right. This had gone far beyond some harmless messages on social media. It was personal now. The police took my report later that night, but they didn't seem to grasp the severity of it. Without clear evidence of a break-in or direct threats, their advice was, block the accounts, stay offline, and be careful. It was frustrating and terrifying at the same time. I had no idea who was behind it or how much they knew about me. A few weeks later, I moved to a new apartment. Jess helped me pick a place with better security, somewhere safer. I got rid of my social media, wiped my devices, and tried to move on. I still get messages sometimes, always from unknown numbers. Random things, I never respond, but I know they're still watching. Somewhere. I never thought much about the way social media could change your life. For me, Instagram was just another platform to share my art, pictures of my paintings, sketches, and the occasional peek into my daily life. It wasn't a big deal, just something I did for fun. That all changed when I got the first message. It was a typical evening at home. I was sitting on my couch, Netflix playing in the background, my cat curled up beside me as I scrolled mindlessly through Instagram. A notification popped up. Someone had messaged me. I thought it was just another follower asking about a piece I'd posted recently, so I opened it without a second thought. "I love your work. You have such a unique style. The way you see the world is special." The message seemed innocent enough. It was from someone named Mike. His profile picture was a blurry landscape and his account was private. I didn't recognize the name, but I figured he was just another art enthusiast who'd stumbled across my page. I replied with a polite thank you and moved on. forgetting about it almost instantly. But then the messages kept coming. At first, Mike's messages were friendly. He asked about my inspiration, my process, the kind of things I enjoyed talking about with other artists. But slowly, the tone began to change. His questions became more personal. He started asking where I lived if I worked from home, and whether I liked to paint at night. Do you ever get lonely when you're working late? Do you live alone? Must be peaceful without distractions. I'd love to see your studio sometime. I bet it's amazing. That was when the unease started creeping in. His words felt too probing. I stopped replying as much, giving short, non-committal answers when I did. I told myself I was overreacting. People are just curious sometimes, right? But still, something felt off. Like he wasn't just asking questions. He was trying to figure something out about me. One night, as I was getting ready to go to bed, my phone buzzed again. I really hope we can meet in person someday. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting into knots. We had never even discussed meeting up, and I had never given him any reason to think that I wanted to. My first instinct was to block him, but something held me back. What if I was being paranoid? What if this was just an awkward attempt at small talk? I ignored the message and went to sleep. A few days later, I posted a new painting on Instagram. It was a piece I'd been working on for weeks, a dark, abstract representation of isolation. I remember feeling proud of it, excited to see how my followers would react. The comments started rolling in, most of them positive. But then, there was Mike. This one feels personal. I can tell you're pouring your soul into it. Do you ever feel like someone is watching you while you work? The comment gave me an eerie feeling. I hadn't mentioned feeling watched in the painting's description. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just a coincidence, that I was reading too much into his words. But things only got worse from there. Mike started sending me messages daily. If I didn't respond, he would comment on my posts, asking why I was ignoring him. His messages became more desperate, more unhinged. I thought we had a connection. Why won't you talk to me? I know you're reading these. Don't pretend like you aren't. You can't ignore me forever. I finally decided enough was enough. I blocked him, hoping that would be the end of it. A week went by without incident, and I started to feel a sense of relief. Maybe blocking him had worked after all. I continued with my life, trying to forget about the uncomfortable messages and focus on my art again. Then, one night, as I was scrolling through Instagram before bed, I received another message from a new account. No profile picture, no posts, just a username that was a random string of numbers and letters. You really thought you could block me? You can't get rid of me that easily. My heart dropped. It was Mike. He had found me again. I didn't even respond this time. I blocked the new account immediately and tried to push the fear down. But as the days passed, the messages kept coming. Every time I blocked one account, he would create another. His words became more aggressive, more threatening. I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be here. I've seen you. I know where you live. You think you're safe, but you're not. That last message made me freeze. I stared at my phone, trying to process what I had just read. He had seen me? Did he really know where I lived? My mind raced, flashing back to moments when I had been out running errands or walking my dog. Had he been there, watching me without me even knowing? Suddenly, the small, safe world I had built for myself felt fragile. I double-checked that my doors were locked and closed the blinds, but it didn't make me feel any better. The sense that Mike was out there wouldn't leave me. I tried to convince myself that he was bluffing, that there was no way he could have seen me in real life. But the messages continued to escalate. He started describing details about my life that I hadn't shared online. My favorite coffee shop, the route I took to walk my dog, the park I like to visit on weekends. Then, one evening, I received a message that shattered any illusion of safety I had left. It was a photo. The image was blurry, taken from a distance, but it was unmistakable. It was me. I was standing outside my apartment building, looking down at my phone, completely unaware that someone was watching me. The timestamp on the photo was from the previous day. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, trying to comprehend what this meant. Mike wasn't just some random internet stalker anymore. He was here, in my world, watching me in real life. I called the police immediately, my voice trembling as I explained the situation. They took my report seriously, but I could hear the doubt in their voices. Without knowing who Mike really was or where he lived, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to stay vigilant, to call them if anything else happened. But what good was that? I had no idea who this person was or what he was capable of. All I knew was that he had crossed the line and there was no going back. After that night, I became a prisoner in my own home. I stopped going to the park, stopped visiting my favorite coffee shop, even stopped walking my dog outside. Every time I stepped out of my apartment, I felt like 1,000 eyes were on me, like Mike was hiding in the shadows, waiting for me to let my guard down. I thought about moving, about disappearing completely. But where would I go? How could I outrun someone who had already found me once and who seemed determined to keep following me? My friends tried to reassure me, but I could tell they didn't really understand. They told me to block him again, to change my phone number, to take a break from social media. But none of that mattered. Mike had crossed from the digital world into my real life, and there was no escaping him now. Weeks passed, and the messages continued, though they became less frequent. I started to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, Mike had lost interest, that he had found someone else to focus his obsession on. But then, one night, as I was lying in bed, I heard a knock at my door. It was soft at first, almost hesitant. I sat up, listening. Another knock, louder this time. My apartment was dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 3:17 a.m. No one should have been knocking at my door at this hour. My hands shook as I approached the door, peering through the peephole. The hallway was empty. My breath caught in my throat as I stared, waiting for anything to happen. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. Was it Mike? Had he finally decided to come face to face? I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That someone was knocking at my door, but I couldn't see them? Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from a new account. I'm closer than you think. I didn't sleep that night. The police came the next morning, but they found no signs of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had been outside my door. They took the case seriously, but without a clear suspect, there wasn't much they could do. I moved a few weeks later to a different city under a new name. I deleted all my social media accounts, trying to erase every trace of my online presence. But even now, I still feel like he's out there, waiting for the right moment to reappear. Every time my phone buzzes, every time I hear a knock at the door late at night, I wonder, has he found me again? I'll never know for sure. But one thing I do know, the fear never really goes away. It started like a lot of things do these days, with a random Instagram follow. His profile caught my attention immediately. His name was Jake, and his page was full of beautiful, almost surreal landscape photos. Endless fields at sunset, misty mountains, abandoned places reclaimed by nature. His bio was simple, chasing beauty wherever I can find it. I was hooked. Photography had always been a hobby of mine, but I never quite had the eye for it like some people do. Jake, though, seemed to have a gift. His photos were hauntingly beautiful, and his captions were always short and mysterious, like he was revealing just enough to pull you in, but never too much. After following him for a few days, I decided to leave a comment on one of his photos. It was an image of an abandoned house, half overgrown with vines, taken at sunset. Something about it was haunting and peaceful at the same time. "This is incredible. Where did you take this?" I asked. To my surprise, he replied within minutes. "Found it while exploring a few miles outside the city. I'm always on the hunt for new spots like this." That simple interaction turned into a conversation in the DMs. We talked about photography, our favorite places to shoot, and the thrill of finding hidden gems in the middle of nowhere. He was easy to talk to, relaxed, but with a passion for adventure that made me feel like I'd known him for years. Before long, we were chatting almost daily. It wasn't long before Jake suggested that we meet up. He was planning a trip to an old mill on the outskirts of the city, a spot he'd been eyeing for a while but hadn't had the chance to visit. I hesitated. Meeting up with someone from the internet? I wasn't naive. I knew the risks. But something about Jake felt safe. He wasn't pushy or weird, and we shared so many of the same interests. I rationalized it to myself. It's just a photo shoot. I'll be in control and it'll be a chance to work on my photography skills. Besides, I could always back out if something felt off. I know this great spot just a bit outside of town, he messaged one day. It's an old textile mill, been abandoned for years. I think it'd be perfect for some eerie shots. I've scouted it out before. It's completely isolated, no one goes there. What do you say? The location sounded ideal for photography, and the thought of exploring an abandoned place was thrilling in a weird way. So, despite the nagging feeling in my gut, I agreed. I told myself it was just nerves. I'd been stuck in a rut lately, and this seemed like the perfect way to shake things up. The day of the meetup, I packed my camera bag, made sure my phone was fully charged, and set out. Jake had sent me the coordinates, and it wasn't too far from where I lived. Just an hour's drive. I told a friend where I was going, even shared the location with her, just in case. Safety first, right? The drive out was uneventful, but the further I went, the more isolated the surroundings became. The bustling city streets gave way to narrow country roads, and soon I was driving through nothing but fields and patches of forest. There were no cars, no people, just me and the winding road stretching out in front of me. I checked my phone, no service. The cell towers must not reach this far out. I told myself it was fine, that I could reconnect once I got closer to the location. Still, that uneasy feeling in my stomach grew stronger. Finally, I pulled up to the spot Jake had described. It was eerie, to say the least. The mill, now a crumbling ruin of the past, stood at the edge of a small forest. Most of the windows were shattered, and the walls were covered in graffiti and vines. The whole place looked like it had been forgotten by the world. I parked my car and waited for Jake. He hadn't arrived yet, which gave me time to take in my surroundings. The silence was oppressive. No birds, no wind, just the soft hum of the car engine as it cooled down. I felt exposed standing out there alone, but I told myself I was overthinking it. Jake would be here any minute. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I was starting to feel a little anxious when finally I saw a car pull up in the distance. It was an old beat-up sedan, the kind of car that looks like it's seen better days but still runs just fine. Jake stepped out, waving as he approached. "Hey, sorry I'm late," he called out, jogging over to me. He looked like his photos, a little scruffy, tall, with a friendly smile. But something was off. Up close, his demeanor was different from what I had imagined. He was too relaxed, almost cocky, like he knew something I didn't. We made small talk for a few minutes. He asked about my drive, my camera, the kind of shots I wanted to take. But something about his tone bothered me. It was too familiar, too casual, like he was sizing me up in a way I couldn't clearly identify. Jake led the way into the mill, and the inside was even creepier than I'd imagined. The floors creaked underfoot, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew and rust. Broken machinery lay scattered around, and shafts of light filtered through the broken windows. We started snapping photos, and for a while, everything felt normal. But as we moved deeper into the mill, the sense of isolation grew stronger. There were no nearby houses, no signs of life, just me and Jake alone in this decaying building. That's when the first real red flag hit me. We were setting up for a shot when I noticed something odd. Jake wasn't taking any photos. His camera was out, sure, but he wasn't using it. Instead, he kept looking at me, watching my every move. The way he stared at me made my skin crawl. "Everything all right?" I asked, forcing a laugh to lighten the mood. "Yeah, just thinking about the next shot," he said, but his tone was flat. Empty. Something shifted in the air. My instincts screamed at me that something was wrong. I had to get out of there. I tried to stay calm to keep the conversation going as if nothing was bothering me. But inside, my mind was racing. I realized how vulnerable I was. There was no cell service, no way to call for help if things went south. And Jake, he was no longer the easygoing guy from our chats. He was a stranger, a dangerous one. "Maybe we should wrap up soon," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want to lose daylight on the drive back." Jake's smile didn't reach his eyes. "What's the rush? We've got all the time in the world." That's when I knew I had to leave. Now, I made some excuse about needing to check on my car and started walking back toward the entrance. I had to fight the urge to run. Jake followed closely behind. As I reached the doorway, I looked back. Jake was standing there, watching me with that same unnerving smile. "You're not leaving yet," he said, his voice low and cold. Panic surged through me. I bolted. I didn't care if it looked obvious, I just needed to get to my car. I heard him shout behind me. My car was in sight, and I fumbled for my keys, praying that I could get in before he caught up. I could feel him getting closer. I jumped into the car, locking the doors just as Jake reached the window. He slammed his hands against the glass, his face twisted with rage. "You're making a mistake," he snarled. But I didn't care. I threw the car into drive and sped off. I kept driving until I was miles away, back where I had cell service. I called my friend, my hands shaking as I tried to explain what had just happened. She told me to go straight to the police, and I did. They took my statement, but there wasn't much they could do. Jake had used a fake name. His profile was deleted by the time they tried to track him down. I still don't know who he really was or what he had planned, but I know one thing for sure: I was lucky to get out of there. The thought that he's still out there waiting for his next victim won't leave me. Now, every time I log on to Instagram, I wonder who's behind the screen. It's hard to admit, but I've always been the type of person who got emotionally attached too easily, especially online. Social media makes it so easy to connect with people, and sometimes those connections feel realer than anything happening in the world outside. That's how it started with this girl, who I'll name Lily for the sake of privacy. Her profile popped up on my Instagram one night while I was mindlessly scrolling through Reels. She wasn't following me, but we had a couple of mutual followers, so I clicked out of curiosity. Her pictures were beautiful, classic Instagram influencer vibes. She had this effortless style, the kind of person who looked just as comfortable in hiking boots on a mountain trail as she did at a high-end brunch in the city. Her smile, though, it was what drew me in. Genuine, unfiltered. The kind of smile that made you feel like she could be sitting right next to you, sharing a joke that only the two of you would understand. I thought about following her right then, but something held me back. I didn't want to seem like another random guy sliding into her DMs. So I waited, just followed her posts quietly, admiring her from a distance. Then, one day, out of nowhere, she followed me back. It was surreal. I wasn't a nobody, but I wasn't exactly popular either. My Instagram was mostly pictures of my dog, random nature shots, and the occasional post of my friends and me hanging out. I had no idea why someone like Lily would follow me, but I wasn't going to question it. The day she did, I felt this strange excitement, like maybe there was something special about me that she noticed. A few days after she followed me, I got a DM. "Hey Alex, love your dog. What's his name?" I remember feeling like I'd just won the lottery. I replied immediately, telling her my dog's name was Rocky and that he was the best hiking buddy I could ever ask for. She responded quickly, asking about our favorite trails, how often we went out, and before I knew it, we were chatting every day. Lily wasn't just easy to talk to, she was perfect. We had so much in common, felt like I was talking to someone who had been a part of my life for years. We bonded over our shared love for the outdoors, our fascination with old movies, and even our guilty pleasure for cheesy reality TV shows. There was something about her that felt right. I started to look forward to her messages. They made the monotony of my day disappear, like she was the one bright spot in an otherwise dull routine. The more we talked, the more I began to imagine what it would be like to meet her in person. I hadn't even seen her outside of Instagram stories, but I felt like I already knew her. It took a couple of weeks for me to work up the courage to ask her if she wanted to meet. We'd been talking about our favorite coffee shops, and I casually suggested that we should grab a coffee together sometime. For a moment, I regretted sending the message. What if she thought I was coming on too strong? To my relief, she responded with a heart emoji and a simple, "I'd love that." I was on cloud nine. For days, I couldn't think about anything else. We made tentative plans to meet at this little cafe downtown, and I even bought a new shirt for the occasion. But as the day approached, Lily messaged me with an apology. "Hey, I'm so sorry, but something came up at work. Can we reschedule?" I was disappointed, but I didn't let it get to me. We rescheduled for the following weekend, but then once again, she canceled last minute. This time, it was because of a family emergency. She was always quick to apologize, quick to promise that she really did want to meet me, but it just wasn't the right time. By the third time she canceled, that nagging voice in the back of my head began to speak up. Something wasn't right. But I brushed it off, convincing myself that I was overthinking things. People get busy, things come up. Still, a part of me wondered why she hadn't posted anything on her stories during these so-called emergencies. I even checked her account after she canceled, but there was no mention of work, family, or anything out of the ordinary. Just the usual photos, her hiking, eating brunch, enjoying life as if nothing was wrong. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was that creeping suspicion that had been growing in the pit of my stomach. But one night, as I was lying in bed, I took a screenshot of one of her photos and ran a reverse image search. What I found froze me in place. The picture wasn't hers. It was a stock photo. A professional model smiling brightly in a field of wildflowers. The photo had been used on several websites, none of which had anything to do with Lily. As I stared at the results, a sick feeling spreading through my entire body. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to accept that the girl I'd been talking to for weeks, the girl I thought I had connected with, wasn't real. I tried to convince myself that it was a mistake, that maybe she had just used the photo as a placeholder or something. But deep down, I knew the truth. Lily wasn't who she said she was. I didn't confront her right away. I spent the next few days obsessively going through her profile, looking for more inconsistencies. I reverse searched more of her photos, and sure enough, each one came back as a stock image or a picture stolen from someone else's account. Everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. When I finally confronted her, I didn't hold back. "Who are you?" I typed furiously. "I know those pictures aren't yours. Why did you lie to me?" The message sat unread for hours, and I began to think she had blocked me. I stared at the screen, waiting for some kind of response. Then, just as I was about to give up, a new message came through. "I didn't lie to you, Alex. Not about the things that matter." I stared at the message, my hands shaking. What did that even mean? She continued typing before I could respond. "I'm sorry about the photos, but everything else is real. Our connection is real. Please don't shut me out now." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to cling to the idea that, despite everything, there was still something genuine between us. But how could I trust anything she said? My mind raced as I thought about all the times she'd canceled on me, all the excuses she'd made. If she was lying about who she was, what else was she hiding? I didn't respond. I blocked her instead. For the next few days, I tried to forget about Lily. I tried to move on with my life, but something told me she wasn't truly gone. It was like she had wormed her way into my brain, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get her out. A week later, I received a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have blocked me." My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the text, my mind racing. How had she gotten my number? I hadn't given it to her. And as far as I knew, there was no way for her to contact me outside of Instagram. "Who is this?" I texted back, even though I already knew. Her reply was immediate. "You know who this is." A strong wave of nausea overwhelmed me. How had this happened? How had I let someone like her into my life? I had no idea who she was, where she lived, or what she was capable of. The messages kept coming. Day after day, she sent me texts, alternating between apologetic and angry. One minute she was begging for me to give her another chance. The next she was threatening to show up at my apartment. It was a Saturday night. I had been out with some friends, trying to distract myself from the nightmare that had become my life. I hadn't told anyone about Lily, or whoever she really was, because I didn't want them to think I was stupid for falling for her lies. When I got home that night, my phone buzzed again. "Look outside." I felt a cold shiver through my body. Slowly, I walked over to my window and pulled the curtain aside. My apartment was on the second floor, and from my vantage point, I could see the street below. There, standing under the street lamp, was a figure. I couldn't make out any details, but they were staring up my window, unmoving. My hands trembled as I dropped the curtain and backed away, my heart racing in my chest. Another text came through. "Let me in, Alex. I just want to talk." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I grabbed my phone and called the police and explained the situation. They arrived within minutes, but by the time they got there, the figure was gone. They searched the area, but there was no sign of the figure. I changed my phone number, deleted all my social media accounts. The messages stopped after that, yet I still sensed someone watching me from time to time. I still don't know who was behind Lily's profile or what they wanted from me. Maybe it was just a cruel prank, or maybe it was something darker. All I know is that I'll never look at social media the same way again. If these stories sent chills down your spine, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder to stay cautious online. Don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying stories that will make you question reality. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Trust me, you won't want to. Stay safe out there, and remember, the scariest part is not always what you see, but what's lurking in the shadows. I'll see you in the next nightmare.